All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Home Services Summit webinar series where all the content, all the information, all the conversation is only on home service brands and franchising. And I couldn't be more excited about this interview because I met Ryan, I think probably about 5 years ago. He had a couple locations. It was at a Springboard event, which if for those of you who are new to franchising, a great event. It's held in Philadelphia. It just was held a couple weeks ago. And by Lane Fisher and Brad Fishman. And the event's great because it's all a lot of very newer concepts, meeting with people who have been around the business for a while. Great interactions. I was really impressed with both Ryan and Ken and what they were doing. You know, at the time, there was no one really out there franchising anything in gutters, right? And so when I heard about it, my mind was kind of immediately went to, well, is there that much business in gutters? I just had to, and of course there is. We've learned that, right? Everything around the home, and maintaining and taking care and improving the home, there's just that we have tailwinds. People they want to do less, they want to spend more time with their families, and they want to get things done right. And so Ryan has had an amazing journey. I'm excited to introduce you guys to and talk about some real quick background on the as a sponsor of the event. ProNexis, one of the companies I'm involved with, is one of the sponsors of this series, and our mission there is to transform the customer experience in the home services category through both voice, text, chat, and instant booking. So format is pretty straightforward. I've got a bunch of questions I'm going to ask Ryan. We'll jump into. There is a chat on the right-hand side of this framework you can see, and feel free at any point in time to put any questions you've got for Ryan inside there, and I'll make sure I do answer or ask Ryan those questions before the end at the around 45-minute mark. And Phil, good to have you, and thanks for joining us. So quick bio on Ryan. Ryan enjoyed a career at a startup company as a graphic designer, which explains the logo and how fluid and wonderful it looks, even though it is grammatically incorrect, as he told me. The brothers that just do gutters. I think it was intentional, right? So a couple of years in college with his brother, while his brother Ken Parsons was busy running a small one-truck gutter company that began in 1999. So some quick math for you guys. It's 23 years ago. I know, Ryan, we were saying earlier that you're almost at 300 locations and overnight success, right? But they've been doing this thing, working at this thing for some time. So things didn't work out. Ryan was looking for something to do. And guess what? What do you do when you want something new to do? You go find someone you love, like your brother, you get to work on something that's fun as what they're doing. Now, they rebranded the business in, was it 2009, 2010, right around there. They rebranded to Brothers that just do gutters. I have a hard time saying that. I'm sorry. But they began officially franchising in 2015, and they got the business going. And that's right around when I met Ryan as he was getting things off the ground. And here's some impressive numbers I'll share with you guys that has happened since then. So this was mid-2021. They teamed up with Franchise Fastlane. I'm sure many of you who are on this have heard of them. They're an amazing group of people. An FSO, franchise sales organization, you can outsource to really get your brand going. By the end of 2021, they had over 83 franchisees with 230 territories, and in 2022, they now sit with over 110 franchisees and 300 territories. I mean, that is just incredible. And I'm sure, Ryan, you're probably your head must be spinning a little bit here, right? Like it's like yesterday. You had a couple people, and now all of a sudden you've got 300 territories in your family, 110 people living the brand, breathing the brand. So that's a bit of the backstory. I'd love for you to, if you don't mind, Ryan, fill in some of the blanks that I didn't share about the backstory and how you were building this company.
Man, I'd say, thanks again for having me on the show, Scott. Really appreciate the opportunity, and for anyone listening. But it was just a crazy journey of just two guys that knew nothing about really the trades and building a business. I went to school for art. My brother went for history. Neither one of us took a business class. And but we went through the school of hard knocks. And one of the biggest failures I would say that we had was we diversified, in 2005. And that, right before the recession, and then the recession really honed us into narrowing down to gutters. And that was the trajectory that really got us on the path of franchising. Is like, no, let's just concentrate on one thing and let's build this. And we didn't know anything about franchising really, except that we thought it was more like, well, it's mailbox money. If we can teach other people how to do it, there's our retirement. We didn't know all the ins and outs. We didn't know that. I didn't even know that people franchise their business to sell it, the whole thing. The first time we got approached by private equity, I'm like, well, let me have my brother show you a PowerPoint. And I thought they wanted to buy a franchise. I'm like, oh, there's levels to this game. So really,
there are levels. There are many levels. Yes,
there are. So we were green, and it just took us maybe longer than others, maybe not, but we got really good at scaling and mentoring people to get over that 1 or 2 truck hump. All service businesses seem to collapse and it back implode. They go to 1 or 2 or 3 crews and they're like, you know what? I made more money when I did it myself. And we really did figure that out, how to get over that. And so then we just perfected it like for years. And my brother, he's the guy, he's very impatient. He's like, the day he thought of franchising, he would have went and got a document the next day by the lawyer. And I'm like, no, we're not ready. If it was up to me, we probably still wouldn't be franchised because it has to be perfect. So we end up making a really good combo. And I really like our journey. And it was awesome. It was awesome. We had 2 pilot locations in 2010 that kind of broke a lot of the systems we thought would scale better. And I'm so thankful for Jeremiah and Jonathan because we got to learn with them and then fix it. And by the time 2015 rolled around, it turns out we were more than ready. We had so much more foundation than a lot of the people I was sitting at Springboard with. I'm sitting at tables and, hearing some of the issues and problems that, franchises that were a little bit further down the line. I was very surprised. I'm like, holy cow, I think we have a really good foundation for something here.
So maybe just walk me back to why did you choose gutters and exactly when you say gutters, are you guys cleaning gutters? Are you installing gutters? Are you doing new construction? Are you doing rehab? Like, tell me more about what exactly you do and why you chose gutters as your select business.
So gutters kind of chose us in the beginning. My brother, when he was in the summer between teaching, he ended up working for a gutter guy and just loved the simple business model. And the guy said, if you come work for me, I'll show you how to open your own business. So gutters kind of found him, and he just, like he likes to say, is he took his degree and he threw it in the gutter. And he went and he learned it, and then he started it. And then when I got involved, we started to grow it. But we diversified, and that was probably our biggest mistake, biggest failure, but it was the springboard for our greatest success. So when we diversified, with my background in graphic design and all that, we systematized it. We had logos. We were answering the phone. We had some processes. People asked if we were a franchise. And so that was in the back of my brother's brain. And then we ended up we didn't know what we were doing in construction. When we were building houses and doing kitchens, I realized, wow, it takes, when you misbid a kitchen, it within a few weeks, but you have to basically lose money for the next 3 months. When I misbid a gutter job, I'm upset and I'm over it by 11 a.m. It's like, okay, that job was no good. I bid 1,000. It should have been 1,700. You don't lose your shirt in some of the niches. So as we had to refocus, we closed down the construction company and we ended up going on getting some consultation from a radio company, and they were trying to build an ad. And they said, well, what else do you do besides gutters? We're like, nothing. We just do gutters. And they're like, all right. And we want to focus on the fact that you're family. And so out of that brainstorm was what I call a happy Bob Ross accident, and the name of the brothers that just do gutters came to be. So to answer your question, we do gutters, we do guards, we do cleaning, we do some fascia soffit. A couple of the locations will do some underground drainage, but we really focus on the gutters and the guards. Cleanings are great. They're awesome and they're residual, but we really like to sell, the gutter and the guard. Those are some really nice profit margins.
Yeah. So it sounds like almost all your work has to do with an existing home that needs an upgrade or update, or maintaining gutters that are existing or already there, or maybe upgrading that gutter to add a guard, as you mentioned, to keep leaves out of the gutters, right?
Yeah.
That's really the business, the core business.
Yep. It's mostly the people that, their gutters are 15 to 25 years old and they're getting new siding, a new roof. It's, we're perfect for that. We do a lot of work with roofers and contractors. I'm not targeting large tract home builders. It's blood money. You don't buy a franchise to go and charge $3 a foot to do gutter. It's a good model for an owner operator. that doesn't have the overhead, the expenses, the marketing. But it's not that we don't do it. We don't go after that business. The good news is in most of the country, they don't require a CO for gutters. So there's so many new homes in like certain
When you say
states.
CO, you mean a contractor's
Certificate
license?
of occupancy. So they're
okay.
building homes and it's not required to have a gutter system. So in some territories, we can crush it with new construction, but we're going straight to the homeowner. So they're building houses without gutters. So it's really good news for us. In other locations, like we're Toll Brothers and those types of big builders, they're not typically good for us.
Yeah, got it. Now, I'd love to just maybe expose a little bit about the model itself. So tell me, when you look at the average cost structure of a gutters business, is it 50% gross margins, 55% gross margins? What percentage goes to labor and what percentage goes to materials?
So the goal is 54 or better. So typically
Okay.
we want to have 20% towards labor, 23% towards material. There's really no subcontractors, anything like that. So we're really trying to get left with, 54% or better.
Yep.
That's the goal.
Yep. No, that's, and I think for anyone that's in home services, the range I always hear about is 45 to 55% gross margins. And it is interesting to hear your split of your homes, your labor and your materials are roughly split half and half. We do bathrooms where we're like 60, 70% is cost of materials and 30% is labor. Then we do painting and it's actually flipped on its head where it's like 15, 20% is materials and like 30%, 35% is labor. But there's always that kind of mix where you have to arrive somewhere around that 50% mark for the model to work. So the marketing is, and are your franchisees using commissioned salespeople to sell the jobs for you?
Yep. So we do a combo. I really believe in combos. I don't love pure commission. So we're doing like a base of 500, 5% of what they sell. So at the end of the day, our sales structure is they're earning about 8.5% of what they sell. So if a guy sells $1 million, they're getting around 80, 85 grand. Then if they can hit the $1 million mark, they get another percentage. And it's a good, I really like it. It's fair. And it's, and
one salesperson can scale a business up to $1 million plus, which is going to be that magic mark for, which is a very simple business, right? To manage as an owner, as a franchise owner.
Oh yeah. And we have a lot of $1 million salespeople in the system. To date, the highest so far was 1.6 and change, was the most somebody has sold in a year.
I love it. Hopefully you have leaderboards so you keep all those salespeople watching to see if they're number one, because I know we all like to compete. Actually,
we did something really cool. I know this wasn't really on it, but we have a bunch of peer groups. And so we have what we call the Trailblazers. So this is any salesperson that sells under 75K a month, right? So this is for our new franchisees. It's for some people that just maybe have a longer arc. But what's been so cool is like they're like graduating 3 or 4 a month to the 100K club. And the way to get into the 100K peer group is to sell over 75 3 months in a row. And so it's been really cool. And I really think that's like helping everybody go, it's possible. It's, I don't know if you know this, but in the beginning, you do know it because you did this. I find that the franchisees, they kind of excuse the success of like the first couple locations. Like, well, you've been doing it for 20 years. Well, you're in New York. That's why your guy can sell $1 million. What's been so cool about scale is like, oh crap, they did it in Atlanta. They did it in Pennsylvania. They did it in Texas. They did it in Florida. It kind of gets the excuses out of the air and it really helps bring everybody up.
Yeah. Let's talk some more about this because I think this is super valuable stuff that if you're in home services can be leveraged. You said you have peer groups. When you organize your peer groups, are they organized by franchise owner or by the sales people that work for the franchise owners? Which I think sometimes might be the franchise owner as well, right?
Yeah, it's specifically, we call our salespeople solutionists. It's geared towards who's ever selling. So
got it.
A lot of times the owners are on it, whether they're selling or not, but it's geared towards the person who's actually going out and selling. So
this is what I wanted to dig into because this is important. I don't know many home service brands that do this. I know we do it at Bass Solutions, which I can talk about in a second, but and that is you are actually supporting and training and really getting into the salesperson that's running the business, and you're creating peer groups for the employees in many cases of the franchisee because what drives the entire business is sales.
Sales solves everything.
Yeah. You see a lot of franchisors will actually create peer groups or flight groups for the owner of the franchise, right? But then they exclude the people who actually make and bring in the money. And I can tell you that, as you just mentioned there, right? When you start thinking about how to get the salespeople to really produce and creating some incentives and recognition around, like you said, what'd you call your flight group? That they're $75,000 a month or less.
Trailblazer, and then the 100K Club.
Right. So Trailblazer, and then you really want to get above that to that $100,000 a month, which is the $1 million mark, which is what you want your franchisees at, right?
Yeah.
Gold right there. That's golden. And I know many brands just don't think about that in terms of really training and spending time with the employees in many cases of the franchise.
We do so much for our franchisees' employees. We have field ops training peer groups. We've got an LMS system that for the people, we've developed a skills ladder. So all their people know where their next dollar is. Like we have so much infrastructure around the success of their people. I'm like wondering, do we have more for them than the franchisees? No, we don't. But the field ops peer group, we have all sorts of awesome things. Yeah,
that's great. Okay, let's talk, before we get too far into like the nitty gritty, I'd love for you to speak a little bit about just in backstage when we were talking, you mentioned that you use EOS traction as an management operating system in the business, that you are the visionary is your brother and you are the implementer.
Yep.
What's the technical term they use in traction?
Integrator.
Integrator. Thank you. Yeah, it just skipped my mind for a second. And you got 4 or 5 people that directly report to you, and you try and keep your team such that they never have more than that. Maybe just talk about how you divide your responsibilities. What is Ken doing, and what are you doing in the organization day to day?
Yeah, so Ken, he's the visionary. He's the big idea guy. He's the one that's going to make connections, but not necessarily like take them down to the nitty gritty. He's the one who makes a relationship with the national, for us to buy trucks. But then somebody else manages that relationship. He's the one who said, we should franchise this thing. He's also the one who said, we're going to be the biggest gutter company in the world when, we were, in 2007, when we were wondering how we could make payroll after closing the construction company. So, he has unbelievable big ideas as far as you name it, he comes up with it. And he does a lot of like the territory stuff. He does a lot of mentoring and just coaching, but he doesn't have a specific actually, both of us, I don't have a reason to go to the office every day. They're not waiting for me to sign checks. They're not waiting. We've done a really awesome job of replacing ourselves with really talented people to continue to drive the company. But I love to manage the people and the projects. So everything that we're doing in the company, I'll bring it to the table. I'll get the rah-rah, the buy-in, and then help my team. I really feel like my job is just to remove obstacles for my team so we can get to the next level. And then I spend a lot of time with my direct reports and teach them how to do this too, is finding out what their goals are and helping them achieve them. There's departments in my company that I didn't necessarily want, but it was somebody's vision. So I said, all right, let's do it.
So maybe talk through the direct reports you do have. Who are they and what are their roles?
So Gabby, she's the head of franchise support and development. I've got Brandon. I'm so bad with the title. I should have brought up my org chart. He's franchise. Holy cow. He's like the COO. She's more like the CFO.
You're so into the responsibilities versus the titles. It's I know what they do, but I don't know what their title is.
Oh my gosh. So we have a whole coaching staff. So Gabby, she looks over finance. She's the head of all the coaches and support as far as our trainers, our coaches, and Brandon, he oversees the sales support. He oversees the onboarding team. He's my implementer. He's the integrator that I have. And then I have Kevin, who's the marketing director, and he's like a wizard. He's unbelievable. And then Karen, who is the call center manager. So those are my direct reports.
Got it. And so who manages, because Fastlane is your outsourced franchise sales organization, but you clearly still have to have someone responsible for managing that relationship, managing the discovery days.
That's my brother. That's my brother, Ken.
So Ken handles the actual franchise development piece of the business.
As far as just, when they've got questions or a franchisee has a territory question or wants more territory, Ken will just, he's in between all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's great. But I mean, clearly it's a really important relationship. And I think that there's lots of, discovery days that are happening, question sessions and so forth, meet the team days that he's helping organize.
Absolutely.
That makes a lot of sense.
And Franchise Fastlane has made it so easy. We just show up. Like we hop on a leadership call once a week and potential franchisees badger us with questions. They fly into town. I mean, it's been awesome. They've taken so much off of our plate that we really get to be like the founders. And that's been really cool.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love it. So let's talk a little bit about, family businesses here. I've been in a family business before. You're working with your brother. I'm assuming that given that you are the integrator and you're so involved in the nitty gritty and the details and your brother's so visionary, there's going to be moments in time when you guys just don't see eye to eye on something. How do you manage that? And how do you just manage that process when you aren't in agreement on things?
We've been very fortunate. What I loved about the book Traction is it says the integrator wins when there's a tie. It said, I was like, I should. But you know what? I can't think of a time where we were so on the opposite side that we couldn't get forward. What I do realize I did as an integrator, I feel bad about this now, but there was a point in time where maybe it was a few years ago, where my answer to Kenny was just no. Like we just had too many things and he would have ideas. I'm like, no, not now. And in hindsight, I was like, crap, I was stifling his gift because I just was overwhelmed or I just was being myopic. So I feel like for me, I really had to learn to embrace that, let him, and for every visionary, there's, not all their ideas are good, and they can be responsible for organizational whiplash. They go in, they get everyone going over here, and then they move on in their mind, and they don't realize that they had the team working on something for 3 months, and they walk in and go, "Oh no, who cares about that?" So it really helped me, that book, like because we were doing a lot of the stuff. There's a book called Rocket Fuel, not Traction, Rocket Fuel. After I read that, it really gave me a new appreciation of my brother and his giftings, and it forced me or made me allow him to operate in those better.
Yeah. Well, I think what you've highlighted there, which is I think really important, is playing to strengths, right? And what you just hit on, which is really important, is every company needs a visionary, and they need someone that can see what they can achieve with the potential in things. And every company needs someone that can execute. They can drill down and nail it. And often those two people can be at odds with each other, which is why I wanted to talk about it, because every organization needs this. If you really want to excel and be an amazing company, someone's going to say, there's true north, and someone's going to say, oh, now here's where we get the sleds to go there, right?
Yep.
And if you don't figure that out, how to work together and have conflict and be okay with, I call it vigorous debate in your organization.
Oh, yeah.
It happens often in my own organization where I have some idea and then I get challenged on it. But, for me, being very open to taking the challenge, but also for the person, be very open with vision, to have vision come in and inform where we're going to go.
Awesome.
It's super important. But you guys have found a way to do that. I got to believe, does it come from being brothers your whole life? Or do you think it's because you're so different, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah.
But you're same family, right? So
same family, so different. But yeah, I mean, we've always gotten along growing up. And so I just think, there's been some times that we probably could have, had a drag out fight on the floor, but it's my brother. I'm his brother. We don't have to go there. We're not going to go there, and then we end up always in the same direction. So it's been like a real blessing to be able to work with your brother, but not have it be awful. I know some people they don't even talk to most people say, how do you work with your brother? I would kill mine. It's like, so a lot of family dynamics aren't the same. I just think we were fortunate. I can't even say we've worked hard at it as far as trying to get along. We've just continued to go in the same direction.
No, I love it. Well, that's great. So let's talk a little bit about your success and growth. The question that I would ask, and I think people are going to ask as well, going from 0 to 300 locations in a year and a half.
No, it was quick. Like 16 to.
Okay. How can you grow too fast? Do you feel like you can grow too fast, or do you think
absolutely.
So tell me what's that like, and how do you change the organization to manage that kind of scale so quick?
You can absolutely grow too fast. I'm I'm so glad that we didn't hire Fastlane a few years ago. They would have buried us. And I'm not saying that as a dig on them. Like you've got to be ready, right? And so one thing that we've always been good at is like, I'm like addicted to the organizational chart. Didn't sound like it earlier. I was drawing blanks, but I love it. And it's like chess to me. It's like, what's our 3-year? What's our 5-year? Who's next? When do you hire compliance? Like, these are all the questions that I was just like, where do they fit? And what was really cool about when we saw this trajectory, our 3-month, like our 3-year org chart became our 3-month org chart. And it was really cool because I knew I needed trainers that were dedicated. I couldn't just piggyback off the corporate location for training franchisees. And it was awesome. Like, I was playing chess. It was like, and we're constantly recruiting. Like, you know, I always, and my brother, that's something he's amazing at. He spots talent and remembers it. He'd be like, well, what about this guy? I'm like, who's that? It's like, they'd be great at this. I'm like, who is it? And like, remember we met him at a barbecue 2 years ago? I'm like, nope. But he's awesome at building teams. So yeah, we pivoted so fast as far as we need this, we need that. We already had the building. We had the space. We had empty cubicles in our call center for years. Like, you know, I mean, I think we had 6, people in the call center, but I think we had like 17 pods or something crazy. So we were ready. We were like poised to grow. And so for us, it was the perfect timing for them. And I think that's why they sold so much, is because I think we had way more infrastructure than for an emerging brand. I think what's so attractive about someone like us is like all the major territories were open. So we had a great item 19. We had ridiculous infrastructure for growth. And I think the brokers they hop on that. They're like, what? Atlanta? Houston? Wait, oh my gosh. And we become the new favorite thing until maybe next year when we start saying, oh, sorry, sold out. So I'm aware. But yeah, if you don't have the infrastructure and you get that growth, the number one thing is people just growing, and then they figure out like, oh, how do I support franchisees? It's like, oh, now I have 20 or 30 or 40. And then they're just, really in a tough spot. So I don't feel we grew too fast. I think we were ready. It couldn't have been better timing.
Who were your first hires as you started adding locations? Like, who was the very first and second hire you made that you knew that you needed to grow the business?
2 full-time installation trainers. The call center was a no-brainer. You just continue to hire there. Yeah, but easy. We had 2 full-time installation trainers. We ended up, we already had an indoor training facility. And when we saw how many franchisees we were getting, and because we're slightly seasonal, depending on where you are in the country, it was like, oh my gosh, there's no way we're going to be able to train enough people in the spring in this room, because a lot of people were just waiting. I'm like, people are going to be waiting months to come to training. So we found another 3,000 square feet right next to us in another building and built a ridiculously awesome training facility where we can train 32 people at one time. There's stations and they get to emulate 95% of what they're going to find in the field right there. So it was awesome. And then onboarding. Like, let me backtrack. I don't know if training was first or onboarding, but we've hired a guy, Brandon, who's just an unbelievable killer, ridiculous capacity. He's going to be huge in this company someday. He started our onboarding department and then built it. And before you know it, we had 4 or 5 onboarders, and we're taking them through Monday.com, everything from your business license to your truck to let's take this, we teach webinars on how to hire. Like, you know, they're like, oh, I need people. It's like, yeah, well, let me teach you how to hire first. Like, and so we're training them how to interview, how to do all this stuff. So onboarding, training, adding additional coaches was next. More in the marketing. I mean, we just kept hiring marketing. We finally got a full-time IT guy. Like I said, I can't remember who's first because it was our 3-year plan in 3 months. Yeah, I love it. Well, you mentioned something that'd be worth digging into for a little bit. You said you use Monday.com to do your onboarding your franchisees. Maybe just describe what is Monday.com? What do people use it for? How do you use it? Is you using the intended way that it's built, or do you get to customize it? It's like a living checklist. So we're able to put everything from get Google verified, right? So that's a task, and then it says who owns it. We might own portion of it, they might own it, and it's like we just rank all the priorities like high, medium, urgent. I can't do anything with Google AdWords unless I've got a credit card. We can't do any verification unless they have a shop or an address. So this team literally just works with them. They meet once a week, they go over things, and in between it triggers like, it's time for that webinar and hiring, time for this, it's time for that. So COVID was really cool for us in the sense that we realized we could do so much virtually. Like, why were we flying people out for 2 weeks to do something in a classroom that I could have done on a Zoom? So that was kind of really cool. So it's a really cool hybrid of them to see how close are they getting to be able to come to training in New York. So they have to hit all these milestones in order to book their flight and then come here. And so I don't know if that explains exactly what it is, but Monday.com is like Asana, or there's a lot of programs like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of, it's like a workflow system that helps you track all the things that have to happen, which is great in that you've actually kind of brought through the franchisees the steps they have to take before they can go live and accept their very first customer, right? Which is great. Now, in doing that, are you using any other software in the business to run the business? I'm assuming you've got obviously bidding software you're using for the franchisees that actually out there and quote work. Are you using anything else besides? Well, maybe just kind of talk us through your tech stack, if you will.
Phew. It's a freaking mess. I wish I could tell you it was better.
So I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one.
You asked me like what keeps me up at night is we were so far ahead of the curve. In 2015, we had all of our franchisees on the same CRM. Like, I was sitting at a table with somebody who had a franchise for 30 years, and I'm like, oh, we're so much better than them. No, we're not. It's because they launched people on paper, then they got a CRM, and then they changed it. So they had like 4 generations of software. And I'm like thinking I'm so cool because I got one. And I'm not. So yeah, we have a CRM. And yeah, we have Monday.com. And yeah, we have HubSpot. And yeah, we have call tracking metrics. And we use the Microsoft Suite for SharePoint. And we have an LMS. And there's only a few things that actually really talk to each other. It drives me freaking bonkers.
Okay, well, what do you use for your LMS, and what do you use for your field software?
So field software is something called Service Bridge, and it's okay. It does a lot of things that it should do, and then it leaves a lot to be desired, which we were going to build APIs to bridge the gap. And then I'm just going to air it all out there for you guys. And then we switched. We were like right before we were going to get big. I found the best piece of software out there. It was expensive, but it did everything supposedly that it should do and that we needed, and it integrated in the reporting, and I'd have visibility across all my franchisees at a glance. And we deployed it, and we were starting to transfer franchisees over, and it was a freaking nightmare. And we were stuck in the middle of that. We stopped doing it. We got out of the contract because it wasn't franchise right. I'm not going to tell you the CRM because I don't feel like it's fair. But it wasn't franchise ready. Because we were literally, as a call agent, I'd have to figure out where the zip code was, then impersonate the right location. It was just insane. So anyway, we pivoted back to Service Bridge. And now we're trying to, we're kind of back where we started, and we're still looking to see if we're working with them more closely. We might be able to get a few bells and whistles. But anyway, that's our CRM. It's good. It makes pretty proposals. There's pictures. There's all this stuff, but it lacks some of the things that are out of the box for some of this newer software. So that is kind of like where we're at.
So your franchisees, and I really appreciate you sharing this with us, Ryan, because I think this is the real world of franchising and home services. You have to have a solid field software solution that integrates with your call center, so you have the correct attribution for the leads that are coming in. You got to track where it's all coming from. You need a breadcrumb trail of all the those interactions with customers. Your franchisee have to have access to it. They have to pay royalties properly. You need visibility into sales. You want all their KPIs. This all has to happen. It all has to talk to each other. And there's more and more demands on a franchisor and a franchisee to be tech savvy and integrated in a way so they can compete. And just sharing this is like super important. I just love for you to, if you wouldn't mind digging a little bit more, like Service Bridge does. Your franchisees are in there all day long, right? They're doing their quotes, their proposals for their customers.
They're, it dumps, it goes right up to QuickBooks. You don't have to log into a bunch of stuff. They can run reports. We can get royalty. They can dispatch their whole crew. It does some really cool stuff. Like I can look at the calendar and I can look down at the bottom right and say, there's $42,000 on for the week. My goal is 47. I got to find a few. There's some really cool stuff. It's all on the phone. The guys they can go and help somebody else out. A lot of cool stuff. But when it comes to the reporting side and some of the visibility that I need as a franchisor, when we had, 10 locations, I knew everybody's stuff. And, we have a good amount of manual automation. We have a really unbelievable dashboard for our franchisees to look at we help them do their budgets. We do a meeting every month, budget versus actual. We help them forecast. We do so much, but unfortunately they got to export something from Service Bridge, export something from QuickBooks. And then we have this really good in-depth thing that we can have the best coaching in the world. I can see their close rates. I can see revenue per hour. You name the KPI, we can dig in. Why was your material 27% this month? Talk about it. Like I'm the world's best coach if I have data. And so is my team. So as the scale went on, that's where some of those things and believe me, we weren't behind. I've been working on this since as long as I can remember, since cloud software was available. So it's not like, oh my gosh, what happened? It was just trying to find and marry the right programs and get the right piece of infrastructure to build your entire company off of. So we're closer than ever. We have a lot of things that are closer, but for me, that keeps me up at night. I cannot wait until this project is done. And I walk in my office and I'm like, oh, look at all the green. And they went orange yesterday. That's interesting. What happened? Clickety, like Minority Report. That's what I will be happy when I can just do that.
I can't wait. We'll see. I can't wait for that to happen as well, because I want to take a videotape of it so I can implement it myself. Software, integrating softwares across all the brands, it is like one of the biggest challenges that I see in home service franchising. You mentioned you use an LMS solution. What solution do you use there?
All right. So this is my baby. So we have the Skills Ladder training program. It is phenomenal. No installer doesn't know where he can get his next dollar. It's take these courses, make sure you're proficient at these skills, you get more money. It's visual. It's unbelievable. So I built them all in something called Rise Articulate 360. It's like building a PowerPoint, but prettier. So you can build these ridiculous courses. At the time when I was building them, Rise wasn't hosting them. So they just you could build them, but I could send it to you, but I couldn't see your score. So we host those. It's, these files that you make for an LMS are called a .scorm instead of like a .pdf or .powerpoint, .scorm. Those are e-learning. So I host it all in Talent LMS. So Talent LMS is where I could give you a login. If you were a new employee, you'd get a login, and then you'd see, Scott, you need to take safety before you can go any further. You take safety, then it unlocks apprentice level 1. Then you have access to all of our videos in our library, and it's awesome. And we got that.
Sounds awesome. That sounds awesome. Really impressive. Once again, you're investing in the employees of your franchisees. You're giving the employees of your franchisees, the installers now we're talking about. Even. I mean, I'm sure sales,
and we have one for the sales too. Yep.
But you're talking now about how you're actually helping deliver a consistent experience on the install level.
Absolutely.
Which is really what franchising is supposed to be about, guys, right?
Absolutely.
That's franchising, actually. I know in home services, we think there's a lot of variability. Like when we owned a painting company, who applied the paint could change the outcome of the 5-star experience. And so if we didn't put enough energy in how to actually do the 5-star experience, and make something 5-star, ultimately, your consumer can be frustrated and you don't get your reviews and it all comes back. So
and nobody reviews it and says, wow, that was the straightest lines I've ever seen in a painting company. They're like, they left cigarette butts on my lawn, or they were so nice. They cleaned up, they put booties on. And that's the LMS is like 60 or 70% soft skills. Call on the way. Here's the script. We practice it. Hi, we introduce ourselves. Before anyone starts working, they have to introduce their, all that is written, documented, checklists. We role play it. And again, it's only as good as our franchisee's ability to implement, but it's there. It's there.
It is there. And we all know the implementation of these things may not be perfect. But what I like what you're doing here, Ryan, is you have created a mechanism to ensure that your business intelligence is being transferred to every person through the organization, from the franchise owner to the salesperson to the installer, all the way through.
Absolutely.
And so that's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. So we mentioned the LMS, we mentioned your field software solution. You mentioned HubSpot. Is HubSpot being used for franchise development, or are you using that for your consumer marketing?
Consumer marketing. I mean, there was a time we were trying to have all of our communications with our franchisees in there, and that didn't work out because only my marketing guy was faithful to it. So, but yeah, it's for file. It's they integrate. I don't know all the nuances. It's mostly used for marketing at the moment.
Right, to the consumer, trying to get the consumer to purchase or repurchase or give reviews or whatever through
that's that. It. And that's my whole marketing department. They don't spend any time on trying to get us new franchisees. They spend, I think we have a team of 8 or 10, and their whole entire jobs are just revolving around how can we get our franchisees more leads? How can we educate them? I mean, you can't really do social media for somebody. I can give them posts and videos and things that they can do in a library. We have tons of resources, but we spend enormous amounts of time and effort teaching them how to become kings of their social, so that they can drive. And that's the one thing that bothers me. I wish we could do it for them, but I can't go fishing with your crew and put that up. I mean, those are the things that people want to see on a local business page. So we put enormous amounts of effort, money, and activity into helping them market.
Awesome. So HubSpot's a great tool. We use it at 5-Star Brands as well. All of our brands use that and actually we use HubSpot for franchise development more than the consumer stuff's all held by ProNexis. We do all the outreach, texting, voice, chat, all kind of stuff through ProNexis. We haven't had to worry about that piece for our brands, but we have used HubSpot extensively for franchise development. It's a very, very powerful tool. What are you using to manage? So if you're not using HubSpot for Fran Dev, what are you using to manage the franchise sales process? I know that Fastlane is doing it for you, but are you tracking your candidates in a software? Yeah. Are you tracking their FDDs?
Monday.com. So I go into Monday.com. I see who's signed up for confirmation day. I can see everything from they did their unit economics call. They were on the validation call. Here's their territory. Here's their questions. Here's where they're from. Here's their bio. So they use Monday.com so that I have visibility into who's coming next, where they're from. I can I like to, before discovery day or confirmation day, I like to read who's this person. I want to get familiar with them. But it's basically for me to just check. I don't do anything in it. I just check to see how they're doing.
Yeah, no, I like it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want. You have your own call center technology. You said call metrics is what you're
call
using.
Tracking metrics.
Yep. And then maybe just let's poke into your franchise FDD process. We're all coming up on that pretty soon here, right? I mean, we're a few months away where we're completing our FDDs. I know Fastlane. In fact, we use Fastlane for 2 of our brands. So Bath Solutions and Mosquito Shield both use Fastlane as an FSO. And so we know Carrie and Ryan very well. And I will say, Carrie, I have never seen anyone so good at creating an item 19 in my life than Carrie.
I did not know it was an art until I met her.
She is incredible at doing that. And so I would say that, not enough time or attention is placed, in my view, having been in franchising for so long, thinking I knew what I was doing, and then actually going to school with Carrie was quite eye-opening as she took us through that process. So I will say that more time and attention should be placed in that. Do you use anything to track your FDDs, the receipt pages, to make sure that they're all filed properly? Who's doing that for you, and how are you tracking it?
So we use Nicola Law Firm. I'm a little bit out of the loop when it comes to the FDD. My head of finance, she takes care of all that. They work with Fastlane. They work with the franchisees. I mean, it's just like enormous amounts of work to make sure that our books are clean, the franchisees, because since we've franchised, we have published every single person's item 19 down to the net. And even when we joined Fastlane, I think one of the things, and again, net, depending on how, what you exclude and don't exclude, like that.
Sure.
There's a little bit that goes on there, but we've always had great data and visibility of KPIs and all that kind of stuff. So when we first launched with Fastlane, we had a 24-page item 19, which was unheard of for somebody with like 12 or 15 locations.
Yeah.
So, but we just decided to publish them all. And of course you get, well, why is this guy not doing great? I'm like, because there's 20% at the bottom of any organization. There's 20 at the top and 60 in the middle.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
if you're going to focus on that guy, then maybe this isn't for you. Focus on why the other guy's doing 4 million.
My favorite answer is always, did you want to be a bottom performer?
Ooh, I got to use that. I like that one.
Like, so you're buying a franchise system and you want to look at the guys who are the worst performers, or do you think you're actually in the top? Because that's where you should be looking if you think you're in the top. So, but I mean, great point.
Is important to me. I don't care. I don't coach my validators. I don't tell them what to say, what not to say. I don't care. I don't, I mean, like, join this because it's the right thing for you and your family. Yeah. I want you to know the good, the bad, the ugly. I know there's way more good than bad or ugly, but I'm not afraid of it because if there is ugly, we're working on it and it'll be pretty.
Yeah. People should have eyes wide open. There's nothing better than full transparency. There's no question. So let's kind of change channels here for a second. And by the way, everyone who's live here with us today, any questions you have, go ahead and enter them in the chat. I do see a couple in there I'll get to in a second. But let me just go ahead and I've got questions I want to answer before I get back to the audience. So do you do over the phone bids yet?
No, not really. We did it through COVID, but we're not. We're still going
so you
out.
did try it through COVID. You actually tried doing quotes over the phone for some of your customers.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So did you have them go and measure the length of the roof line so you knew what you were dealing with?
Maybe they sent some pictures. There's Measure Map, there's Hover, there's all these really cool things for what we do. Some of those get expensive fast. They're like, $40 a house. I'm like, all right, we can do 100 in a week. It was like, okay, maybe it was short-sighted, but it was just a lot of, it seems like everyone had way too much technology they wanted to sell us. Mm-hmm. And I just need the linear footage. I don't need this and that and 3D dimensions and stuff. So yeah, we did it and semi-successful.
Okay.
But
you've gone back to taking a quote now, or setting up quote or estimates versus doing over the phone bids. I asked that question because I do believe, you're seeing a lot of technology coming out around the actual estimation of work on homes through satellite or other methods, right?
Yep.
And at ProNexis, we actually do provide quotes for like pest control companies, lawn care companies over the phone, cleaning companies, for example, like maid services. We'll actually quote over the phone based on some metrics they're giving immediately. But what I've noticed is as long as what we're quoting is under $800, a consumer is okay with buying over the phone.
Yeah.
When you break that $1,000 mark, which I'm assuming most gutter jobs is over $1,000, most paint jobs are in that $5,000-$6,000 range. Our bathroom jobs are $10,000. People, they don't want to be sold over the phone.
Yeah.
They want to meet you. And so as much as you can probably do it over the phone, you need to be in person to really communicate the brand and establish trust so they can be, they're comfortable buying. So I think that's an interesting.
I think it's important to have both. That was like a goal of mine before we hit that massive growth was like, I want to make it easy for people to give us money. This younger generation that's starting to buy, they don't understand why they can't get home services like Amazon. Well, like, why do I have to be here? I don't want to meet with some creepy old guy. I had somebody say that once, that they're a young marketing person in the department. They're like, there's a plumber coming to my house. Like they were like petrified. Like that a guy was going to come to their house. I'm like, huh?
Well, they're in a white van. And you know what that means?
Yeah, that's it. They're going to steal them. So I do believe I think there's a hybrid. The only thing that always holds me back is, one of the things that some of the franchisees or certain salespeople say, I hate it's a cleaning estimate. A good salesperson always turns a cleaning into a bigger job. So if we sold it over the phone, now we're relying on the techs to possibly get the gutter, the guard. And I'm sure like painting, even when you go and look at gutters and measure, sometimes you bring that gutter down and there's rot. And it's like, you just, as much as I feel like I need to be able to do both someday, like where, hey, choose your path, choose your own adventure. You want someone to come out? We got it. And I see people having success. They just don't go out anymore. And because they don't have time, like mail me a picture.
That's one of the biggest challenges of a solid brand is it does have success. And as they have success, they get to bigger jobs, bigger margins, more profitability. And they sort of kind of look down their nose at that small, like in painting or bathrooms, like that small job that's only $1,000 or $500. And I've always said, because I'm a huge, proponent of remember the customer experience, right? You have to remember the customer transaction isn't just that one time they needed a large bathroom redo. It also included the time they needed their toilet replaced. It was only $800, right? But if you take care of them in each instance, you'll get the big projects. And I used to have a lot of issues with franchisees who would say things like, look, I have a job minimum. I'm not going to come out to that job and quote unless I know it's at least X amount, $800, $1,000. So they'd want us over the phone to start qualifying, like, do you want 3 rooms painted, or you want, just trim? And I would harp on that, and we'd really try and stamp that out. Like, guys, remember, you want customers raving about their experience with you.
Yes.
And if you do that properly, there'll be endless work from referrals, customers, repurchases. Don't be so transactional. So I think you hit something on the head that's really important, and that is, don't be transactional.
No. You're
in this business to make money. Yes.
Yeah.
Every business is, but remember who you're taking care of. Remember the customer is at the heart and soul of your business. If you do that, you'll be successful.
Yeah. And there's every opportunity. When someone calls for cleaning, that's one of our logoed sales cars going down the road. That's another yard sign. That's another referral to the neighbor. That's 4 corner sales. That's a 5-star review. It's like, don't be myopic. There's boundless opportunity. Even if you only sell a cleaning, it's your fault if you didn't go and get introduced to a neighbor. Why didn't you make more of that opportunity?
That's right. Yeah, I love that. So I have a question here from Phil Metra. His question is, does Ryan use any profiling tools for new franchisees? And I think you've probably heard some of these tools that exist out there that help people know exactly the candidate and their personality profile. Do you guys do that with Fastlane or yourself at all?
No, we did. At one point, we were big disc users, and then there was another one too that somebody really liked. I have a hard time with it. I love it. I like to know, like, oh, my brother's a high D, I'm a high I, this person's a C. I've just seen everybody work and fail that in every different personality. So no, I do love it. I like it for the sense of, I like the disc because it also tells you how to coach that person. Like, this person really likes when you're direct. This person would rather you beat around the bush if you have something tough to tell them. So I've heard that, like, you really don't want to sell a franchise to anybody who's got lower than a 50 in a D. We haven't done it. We've gone through, I'm actually going back and forth right now of whether we should introduce it again. I actually had a franchisee get very offended. He was so upset with us that we were going to do this and we were going to throw him in a box, and he refused to take it. Refused to take it.
He must have had a bad experience at some point where he didn't get a job because his disc profile came back wrong or something, right?
And it turns out he wasn't a great fit.
So maybe that was a red flag.
No, if he was a superstar, I'd have a different opinion. So no particular real reason. But I do like them. I don't think they're the end all say all. Yeah.
I think that's a good answer. Thank you for that. Another question I've got for you is probably more to do with what's happening right now. I mean, I was just at the Springboard event and was speaking with a few brands out there, and we're on the front end of a lot of brands, customer experience. So, when the calls come in, we see it, and we're tracking where things are at. Are you seeing a slowdown at all as you look at this summer and where we are here in September, October, in call volume and interest from consumers because of the market, interest rates, what's happening in the economy, stock market? Like, are you seeing any impact of that on your business yet?
Yes and no. I honestly don't think I'm qualified to answer it because we have so many people at varying degrees in their business. When you have so many people in startup, you can't tell if it's startup because you're getting their marketing going or the economy. When you have 8 weeks of a drought in Texas, that really rings our phone. So we have locations that are just crushing it and they're head over heels in estimates. I have not been able to get, other than my marketing team giving us, trends in Google. But we have been fairly solid as far as everybody's growing. Some of our bigger franchisees, the $3-4 million ones, they're more flat year over year as far as they had this awesome growth. And they're all growing, but they're not one was like, I wanted to go from 3 to 4 million. Well, they went from 3 to 3.4. They're disappointed, but when you tell somebody else I went from 3 to 3.4, people are happy. So I really can't tell because we're getting more and more, we're adding more franchisees. So our call volume's going up. So I have 30 more franchisees this month than I did in the beginning of the year. So some of our metrics just aren't accurate.
Right?
Huh?
You have a couple corporate locations, right?
We have one corporate location and then two that we were partners, and then they broke off into a franchise. But yeah, I'm seeing weird stuff. I'll just tell you that much. I'm seeing, for whatever reason, this guy, we could have 2 locations in Atlanta, same budget, and then one's just like struggling for leads and the other's not. And some of the struggle too it's not a year over year thing. I was hoping to add a third salesperson, and I did, and now I don't have enough leads for 3 of them. But a lot of times when we're looking at year over year, they're still better than they were. It's their expectation of growth that I think COVID really hurt us in the sense of our mind. We thought, wow, we're just doubling, we're just crushing it through that. And now that big pimple of that, like, oh my gosh, we're killing it. And now it's kind of coming back to the line. Mm-hmm. So I'm sorry I didn't even give you an answer, but I don't, given where our company is, I don't think I have I can't tell 100%.
I think what you said there, though, I think it's important to note is when you compare 2022 Q1, Q2 to 2021 Q1, Q2, when in 2021, people were seeing 50 to 100% increases in demand, and they couldn't keep up with it. And that compared to 2020, right? We had this massive increase in demand. Now you're comparing this year to a superhuman year that existed last year. I think there's a lot of businesses that are just going, wow, I was expecting to double again this year and just keep with this wave of business and demand. But the reality is that, that was a blip, and a lot of demand just was created when people are stuck at home and they had too much money because they're not traveling. Now we're normalizing. So I think a little money is going to come off the table around home service spending as they get back to traveling and doing other things, because they can do that.
Yeah.
And so it's just important to note that, I wouldn't, in whatever economy you're in, your business can do well. Smart people, good marketing, great customer experience, you will always grow. Whether you're in 2009, which I've lived through, or COVID, which I've lived through, or today, right? But just to be mindful of the fact that there are going to be some economic factors that will be playing in the next little while, and to be considered.
The one thing for sure is acquiring a lead and a client has gotten so much more expensive. Like, I mean, we used to
lead costs
destroy it. We used to destroy it on Google. But now, like, even your mom and pops are spending $500 or $1,000 a month. I mean, so everyone's going to Google to buy leads. Most of our clients are now going to Google to find companies. So that's why we spent so much effort into going back through SEO measures. And because it was so cheap. I mean, we had some franchisees that were averaging $20 a lead for years. Yeah. And now it's just, oh my gosh, but we're not able to do that in every territory. So we're trying to continue to diversify our marketing pot because when marketing goes up 2%, I mean, that affects your bottom line just to do what you were hoping to do with 2% less. So I don't know if you're seeing that, but that's what I'm seeing is that it's a little bit harder to
lead costs are going up, and we've seen it across the board. I've got a couple comments here. Patrick Connors wanted to thank us for doing the show, and Paul Permachik also wanted to thank you. Thanks for joining us. I got a question here from Doug McGregor. Do you have individuals assigned to support specific franchises? And if so, how many franchises do each of you or consultants support?
Yep. So we have what my brother likes to call bro coaches, and we're topping them off at 30, and one wants 40. So we'll see. But I like around 30, and they're doing a 1 to 1.5 hour budget versus actual meeting with them once a month, where they go over everything. They're doing all that kind of stuff. So that's about what we found is a good spot. And but yeah, those are the only ones that are assigned to certain people. And then we have generalists, where we have a full-time sales coach or training and development. And he basically, he does webinars all the time. He's doing a lot. We do the Supercharge My Sales, where we got a lot of stuff, but our coaches right around 30 is where I think is a good sweet spot.
Yeah, I think that's I hear that consistently between 25 and 40. I know with some of our brands, we have ratios that are like 1 out of every 60 or 70. But the reason why that works is because the brand has a culture of franchisees supporting each other and flight groups.
It's great.
So leveraging that has resulted in actually better coaching and a better culture, because there's this, I think in my view, one of the responsibilities of any franchisor is to create community. People want to belong to something. And so the more you can do to make connection between franchisees, regional events, annual events, and so forth, monthly calls, it helps make those connections happen. So I think that's one of our responsibilities.
Absolutely.
And last question that Doug has here, what do you focus on with the calls? So when your consultants are calling and speaking with and coaching franchisees, what's the main focus of those calls?
Well, it always ends up becoming what their main focus is. It could be like marketing that month. It could be a rogue employee. It could be an underperforming salesperson. But my goal is to always try and start with the budget versus the actual. All right. So you were supposed to do $100,000 in revenue. You did 94. You were hoping for 54% gross profit, but somehow you did 58, So we just literally go down budget versus actual, and we just, it's just peeling back the onion, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I might not even know, they might not even know the answer, but if they peel back and go, well, what happened here? Sometimes they put a credit card charge in the wrong category. Like there's, but how can I coach from there? So if I see when they say I need more leads, and I'm like, okay, maybe. And then I open up their sales metrics. I'm like, your guy's got a 21% close rate and average sale of 900. I don't think, hey, maybe you could use more leads. I'm not going to say you don't, but you've got a sales issue, not a leads issue. That's the job of the coach, is to just shine a light. I don't need to know every answer. I could just say, look, it looks like you got a sales issue. I might not even tell them what to do. And now they can go back and say, I got a sales issue. How can I get more per lead? Or how can I either coach this guy up, or maybe I need to find someone else to do that role?
Great. Well, thanks for that answer, Ryan and Doug, for your question. This has been a great 1 hour. We could go for 3 or 4, but Ryan has 5 kids. He's doing his responsibility, according to Elon Musk, to repopulate this earth. Just like me, about 5, you can see behind there as well.
Love it.
And he's at his lake house, which is one of the fruits of his hard labor. So congratulations to you.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we wish you all well. And Ryan, thanks again for joining us. You did a great job.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Hey everyone, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and more importantly, that it brings some value in building your home services business. If you'd like to access more of this amazing content, like and subscribe below. If you'd like to be part of our live recordings and get involved with the speakers and myself, click the subscribe to calendar button or the link in the description to get updates to future events.